I have not done the same research. This is a federal building?
Yes.
Okay,
Defense has some argument, of course.
please.
So there's two different things going on here. The first is that Mr. Lewis was expressing his right to free speech under the First Amendment by recording in a federal building for news purposes. Actually have a Federal Protective Service bulletin here on the law that protects this type of activity. If it was to
Takes judicial notice.
Thank you. If it was to be for commercial purposes, taking photographs or video of architecture to use in architectural work, there would need to be written permission. If it was for non-commercial purposes, someone filming a ceremony or something, they would need verbal permission. But there is a cutout in here for news purposes that someone who's filming or photographing for news purposes can do so at building entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, and auditoriums, which is where Mr. Lewis was. He wasn't inside any particular offices. He was just kind of filming the main lobby where folks sit and they take a number and they wait. So that's one part of our argument, is that his activity is First Amendment protected.
Let's see what you have, please.
Yes.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
if I may. So there is a video that the defendant uploaded to YouTube, and in that video you can clearly see where the defendant videotaped customers in the Social Security Administration interacting with Social Security agents while conducting business. So the cubicles are in an open concept space, and the defendant did directly videotape customers' personal administrative business while with the administrative agents, which would be, I guess, contrary to what defense is saying.
That would not be covered by the document
Yes.
that he provided by the court. That would be the document that defense counsel provided by the court would cover other action and not this particular action.
I'm looking at 41 Code of Federal Regulations, Appendix to Part 102-74, Rules and Regulations Governing Conduct on Federal Property. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Protective Service, Unclassified Law Enforcement Sensitive, FPS Internal Use Only document that I'm reviewing cites 41 CFR 102-74.420. which deals with photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes, except where security regulations, rules, orders, or directives apply, or a federal court order or rule prohibits it. Persons entering in or on federal property may take photographs of space occupied by a tenant agency for non-commercial purposes only with permission of the occupying agency concerned, space occupied by a tenant agency for commercial purposes only with the written permission of an authorized official of the occupying agency concerned, and building entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums for news purposes. It appears as though subparagraph C applies directly to recording or taking pictures of building entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums for news purposes.
And Your Honor, I would have to argue that it does say photographs, it does not say video where there's sound, which does intrude on the customer's privacy, given that it is federal business.
Is there anything to specifically prohibit the activity that the defendant engaged in? One can make the argument, I suppose, that a video is just a very fast collection of individual photographs. Is your argument that it is the sound that is important?
It is the sound, and also, as the officer stated, only customers. So where the defendant videotape is a corridor that has multiple cubicle-like areas. So he stepped into an area where it's only for persons conducting business.
Right, Judge, I think the state's argument is that the locations where the defendant was taking video was no longer covered by that particular statute. It wouldn't be a foyer, an entrance, or anything like that. These are actual cubicles or where citizens are sitting there discussing their personal business, their private information with a Social Security administrator for the purpose of gaining their own services. And that is where the defendant was intruding upon and recording. We have a video here that was uploaded by the defendant.
I see it, please.
Yes. And you can see
Is there any
it.
objection to the court watching the video?
Objection.
Okay.
And on that video, Judge, I mean, you can see multiple members of the public who are sitting there speaking with Social Security administrators.
Let's take a look at the video with the sound, please.
Can I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, please. Is there any way to broadcast that? So can we use the L mode to put it up or share it to Zoom? While they get that set up, Ms. McTorry, are you good?
Judge, I'm gonna have to change some settings on the screen. They're gonna have to go off.
Okay, I think they'll still be able to see the video if you share it. The public members who are watching, I think that if it's shared
It's
to,
possible, but I don't know how the Zoom would work. I think we will no longer receive that.
no, we won't see them,
Right.
but they'll, as long as the public can see what's happening in the court, I think we're good. Mr. Vasquez, I see that you're here on Brittany Garza. And you're waiting on Mr. Beadle's response, correct?
I am, Your Honor. We submitted the package, and we're just waiting on his response.
How long, you say you submitted it yesterday?
Yes, Judge.
Doc, I'm gonna have to give you about a month or so. I can't imagine him getting to it any sooner.
Okay, Judge.
All right, if you'll just see Ms. Jamay, she'll reset it for about 45 days for a DPIH setting.
Will do, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hey, Mr. Metzger.
I want to interrupt.
No. While they're getting that set up,
Actually, approval for a reset, it's good. It's a high BAC. We're waiting on a letter from the homeowner, which is to see that rent his house.
okay. Let's give it 20-day reset. Yes. How old is it?
We should have the letter this week.
Okay. Sounds good.
I think the homeowner was out on vacation.
Sounds good.
Say, hey, the interest paid for the house.
Oh, okay. That sets him up for PTI.
Yeah,
Possible.
the defendant, they were 3 houses down. He took out his dad's 1960 big truck or something, did not have drive standards, and
Those column shifts, they can get you. And Ms. McTorry, you are here on Tredarius Thompson. He appeared with his mom.
Yeah, that one's.
How's he doing on his bond conditions? Is he doing okay? Tredarius Thompson, come up, please. Give me just 1 second, y'all. I'm going to talk with Mr. Thompson, and then we're going to get back at it.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr.
I've been getting paid $1,000 a month, if not more, just from this Apple iPhone. And
On the Zoom, able to see this?
I'm not sure, Judge.
No, Your Honor,
They're not? Okay.
no.
I'm just making sure they operate.
Do you want to watch it, Judge?
Does anything else happen?
I mean, it's a pretty long video.
Something else happened?
At this point, he hasn't, I don't believe he's been.
What is it? Okay, here we go. This is
Right.
interesting.
That's not their fault.
And so I believe at this point, he's already.
I can show you right here where it says that I can.
Okay.
Right, and I think at this point, he's already past the point of corridors, foyer.
Well, he was in a corridor. I think that we can stop it. I think that according to, here's my concern. And I hate that the people on the Zoom call can't see it, because I do think light is the greatest antiseptic to any alleged government overreach. I'm not sure of the purpose of the news channel, such as it is. Everyone has a podcast. Everyone has a YouTube channel. Everyone is now a citizen journalist. And I see Mr. Lewis acting as one as well. I didn't see him go into any areas where it said there were signs saying no public access beyond this point. Whenever he came up to one of those signs, he stopped. I do not like him taking pictures of the workers behind the glass, but I don't think that where his physical person was, he was trespassing in that place.
I think that comes later, Judge, when he's asked to leave.
Now, once he's asked to leave, the question becomes, did they have the authority to ask him to leave?
Right, Judge. And I think that goes back to whether or not he was allowed to record there. And so when we're talking about corridors, I think the spirit of the word corridor is an empty hall, right? And that seems like that is in line with the architecture and all of that kind of stuff, right? In this case, that's correct, that's a corridor, but it's not an actual corridor. That's a corridor where business is conducted with windows. And as we saw, there was a gentleman there who was conducting business who seemed to be a little uncomfortable by having been recorded doing his business.
The way I saw it, that guy was inviting him to take a picture inside the glass. because he kind of pointed like, you want to get some of this? Here's my concern from a probable cause standpoint. It is clear from the video that Mr. Lewis is testing the limits of the constitutional authority of citizens to observe their government in action. Would it have been better for his YouTube channel to say, look at all of these people in this lobby sitting and waiting to be seen by someone from Social Security, and look down this corridor at all of these empty desks where no one is working? That is, I think, of interest to the public, that it takes hours and hours and hours to get anything done. And it doesn't appear as though there's a whole lot of action going on. But there are people behind the glass who are apparently working. They're just not helping that we can see as citizens, customers.
Right.
That's newsworthy to me.
And another argument would be that I don't believe that he's allowed to record there in the first place, Judge. So the statute that was provided was, except for security regulations, rules, and orders or directives apply, or if federal court order prohibits it. The Social Security Administration Program Operations Manual System specifically states that photography and video recordings are prohibited in federal space without the permission of the tenant agency. It refers back to 74420. So it looks as well as there's a sign on there, Judge. So,
Any of those signs, Mr. Serrano, prohibit him from recording? I'm not being intentionally daft or dense. I didn't see him pass any signs. And it looks like he can record building entrances. We saw him there. The lobby where everybody was kind of sitting. He could have sat out there and recorded all day. Foyers, he passed through that between the outside glass and the inside glass. Corridors.
right, Judge. I think it's prohibiting his entrance into the building. So it's saying that he can't record it in general. That's my understanding.
Renee is referring to this sign on the outside of the building, which states that it's federal law and Social Security Administration policy, and that says you can't do it without express written consent. So the federal law that is referring to would be what we're looking at right here, that if you're doing things for commercial purposes, you got to have written consent. And then the exception to all this is, except otherwise a rule, an order, a directive, or whatever. It doesn't say anything about policy here. There's nothing in the rule that carves out an exception for First Amendment protection based on policy. It says rule, directive, court order, regulation.
Right, Judge. And I'm just getting that particular language from the Social Security Administration website itself.
No, I get it. Okay, I get it. Now I see where both sides are coming from. I think that the policy on the sign is in contradiction to the law on the books. And where the policy contradicts the law trumps. Title 41, Section 102-74.420 clearly gives a citizen the authority to record building entrances. Lobbies, I can't see how you would record a lobby without walking in it. Foyers, corridors, and auditoriums, and the memorandum of policy and procedure states, hey, we know folks are now coming in to do this. Let them do it. Let them do it. It is uncomfortable, but it is permitted. So the question then becomes, for me, doggone it, is the government following their own rules?
Right. I would just argue that once he starts recording people conducting business at the Social Security Administration, he is no longer following what the guidelines or the law is saying.
The spirit.
That's when it's no longer applicable to him because That's what he's doing. He's not recording any of these other things. He's recording people actually doing their business there. And that's when he crosses. I would agree that at the beginning it's fine, but once he starts doing that.
And the court, I don't mean to cut you off, Your Honor.
You're not.
The court noted earlier, made the distinction about sound. Yes, that person is in the shot, but we can't hear anything going on. We can't hear any business going on. He might as well be talking to a Social Security administrator worker in the hallway, not necessarily through glass, but there's no sound of any business. He's not trying to record someone's personal information and business for these news purposes. It's they're in a corridor.
Let's look then to the intent of the law as it's written to make a sound decision. If a person can record a building entrance, there are going to be people there. If they can record a lobby, there were obviously people there. And we can all agree that according to 420, he could just sit in the lobby and record that with those people in there. Corridors, if there are people in the corridors, they would just be caught on the camera. Auditoriums. It doesn't say if empty.
Right, Judge. And I think there's a difference in the sense that they're actually, it's correct that that you can't hear what exactly they're talking about. But the very nature of those individuals sitting there at the Social Security Administration office, where most people may not want to be videotaped there.
Right.
I mean, I've had to do business there for myself at one time, and I certainly didn't want to be recorded there.
You want your privacy.
Exactly. And that, I believe, is what the spirit of the law is, Judge, is that...
Here's our problems, Mr. Serrato, me and you specifically. We're both rules followers.
Right.
You're a Navy guy, Army guy, Air Force brat. I was raised to follow rules. And that makes us good at bending to the will of authority that sometimes other people don't feel like they need to bend to, and they test the limits. And Mr. Lewis is testing the limits. And so I have to, as a judge, set aside my own nature of being a rules follower and actually follow the rules.
And in that spirit, Your Honor,
Right.
if we watch the video in its entirety, which is too long, you can hear Mr. Lewis several times stating on the video, he's quoting this exact rule. He's like, I'm in this location, it's for news purposes. And I know the summary that the state read talks a lot about being asked to leave and refusing, but a lot of those conversations are debating whether or not he can video there. And he just quotes, he's like, Section C, I'm in this area, it's for news purposes, I can video here.
He can video,
Right.
he can video there. He can video there.
And there are other portions of the video, Judge, where he's also recording other people doing business at other stations.
I don't like those parts. I think people, just as the First Amendment gives Mr. Lewis the ability to expose what our government is doing, other people, I think, should have the freedom to conduct their business without feeling like their personal business is going to get out on YouTube.
Right. And I think that's what the spirit of the code that we just saw with the
There's nothing in the code about people's comfortability.
I know. No, I think Mr. Lewis is within the bounds of the law. But I'm not going to be false. It does make me nervous because I would want to do my business, with those people privately. I wouldn't want to be recorded. I haven't heard him pick up anyone's voice about their personal stuff.
And I started this whole thing with 2 points, Your Honor. One is this whole First Amendment issue, and the other, I don't know if the court wants to get to this or not, and I just kind of alluded to it. I haven't watched every second of this video in its entirety, but it seems to me that at the end of it, when he is giving a trespass warning for the first time and he is asked to leave for the first time, he's like, fine, I'll leave. And then they say, no, it's too late. We're going to arrest you. All of the interactions we have with building personnel, and I invite the court to watch the whole thing, but it seems like they're debating about whether or not he can video in this area and how uncomfortable he's making people. I don't think he was asked to leave or given a warning that he needed to leave until.
Disclosure, I've never watched Mr. Lewis's videos, but I watch these videos on YouTube all the time. Just as I watch active self-protection and other videos where citizens are exercising their rights. And I lean more towards allowing citizens to hold their government accountable and challenge the authority of government because it's our right to do so.
Judge.
People still end up getting arrested, but they end up getting their cases dismissed and acquitted. I don't think that Mr. Lewis violated the letter of the law. I do think that in recording individuals doing and conducting their business, the spirit of it, because they're citizens just like Mr. Lewis. But tell me what you're thinking, Mr. Serrato.
Well, Judge, and so there's also another statute that says that what is policy concerning the conformity with official signs and directions, that is 41 CFR 102-74.385.
Get there real quick. 41 CFR 402 102
102-74.385. That is, what is the policy concerning conformity with official signs and directions? Persons in and on property must at all times comply with official signs of a prohibitory, regulatory, or directory nature and with the lawful direction of the federal police officers and other authorized individuals. Again, he wouldn't be.
But what if the
the
sign is in direct opposition to what the law is?
So the sign, official signs,
What is an official sign?
right? So that's, I get it. There's a sign there. The sign clearly does not comport with the law. And what's so telling is this word lawful direction of federal police officers. I don't know if those guys are police, but their directions, if they're telling him he can't record in the areas where he was that are not prohibited by law, then their directions are not lawful.
And there is a conversation he has on the phone on the video with a federal protections officer, a federal officer. It seems to not have any problem with what he's doing. It's a mere fact people felt uncomfortable what he was doing, and that's fair, right? It made me uncomfortable too, but it's not. He has the freedom to do that.
I don't see where he has violated a law. A grand jury may disagree with me, and I think that they probably would, but ultimately, as this thing goes through the court system, based on a plain language reading of the law, I believe that Mr. Lewis would be vindicated. And moreover, what the state is attempting to avoid would be now solidified in case law that he could do it. And more people will go and try it, which could be a good thing.
Right. I mean, the state's argument is just ultimately it's that he was not in a spot that he was able to video. Is that once we say corridor, the ordinary meaning of that is that it's a plain hallway where no business is conducted, and where Mr. Lewis was recording wasn't that. It wasn't that because there were people actually doing business there, even though it looks like a hallway. Some rooms might look like hallways. It doesn't mean they are hallways. There's corridors where business is conducted, and that's not what the rule is there for. The rule is there for plain hallways.
My old evidence professor used to say, don't shoot from the hip when you have sights on your gun. Is there a definition of corridors? Is there a federal definition of it?
I'm going to assume no. We're ready at the bat. I'm going to assume no.
I would imagine it would. I would just say whatever
Because we talk
whatever the Webster's definition of corridor is probably the common understanding of the word corridor would probably be what corridor means.
Sure. So, we talked about the Code Construction Act at one point. So we got to go to plain language definition. That's what the law says. I'm going to search it. A long passage in a building from which doors lead into rooms.
There are vestibules in the corridor, and we can, he is in a corridor. We can all agree that that hallway is a corridor.
And here's the British definition: a passage along the side of a railroad car from which doors lead into compartments, which is precisely what we have here. And those guys made up the English language.
No, Judge, I've heard someone talk, if they don't do
They don't do it justice. I understand. Man, doggone it. It sounds really, from the plain language reading of the law, that he is within his rights to do what he's doing. And I suspect he's going to get arrested some more because he's going to keep pushing the government to be responsible to the people that fund it. And that is laudable. Recording other citizens, doing their private business. Makes me
And I think
nervous.
that's the difference, Judge, between the first one and the second one. And that's why I believe this one is a better one, Judge, because that's where we have the issue, is where it turns into something different when he starts recording other people.
Yeah, the one against the city, that one is going in direct contradiction to what the black letter law is. This one seems to be too. The magistrate has found PC, is what I heard earlier. Yeah, the court can revisit PC at any time. I'm going to encourage the state to take this to the grand jury and let the grand jury, let the defendant prepare a grand jury letter and pack it, submit it, and then let a grand jury make a decision and let the chips fall where they may. But I think, kind of like I was saying, with the under 18 possession of a concealed a weapon where the Texas statutes prohibit it, I think that the law is wrong on that. And sure enough, there's a case now, 2 days, 3 days ago, federal judge said, yeah, law is wrong. I think that the guys were wrong on this. I think that Mr. Lewis was right. And I think ultimately it may take some time. Some judge is going to say, yep, Mr. Lewis is right on this. Today, I guess it's going to be this judge. I think take it to a grand jury. Take it to a grand jury and let them make a PC decision. So let's reset it for that. What's the waiting time to get in front of one of those guys?
You need to make an appointment, Judge, so I'd have to ask them. It's a couple of weeks.
Let's give it a month. That gives plenty of time to get in front of them and see what they say. But I would encourage the preparation of a packet. I will appoint an investigator. I want to make sure that someone with a court order can go over there and do exactly what Mr. Lewis did. Record it so they can see, you know what I mean? Without the defendant's other stuff involved. But it is.
People decide. Makes sense.
Let the people decide. I think I'm right on the law. Maybe my leanings are too libertarian, but I think I'm right on the law. A grand jury may disagree. I hope not, because I like to think that I'm getting it right, but we all make mistakes. This will help me make the right decision in real time. Certainly will help Judge Jordan as well. He'll be the one that has to follow up with this, not me. So, all right, thanks, y'all. So we do have a record, at least for Judge Jordan. Mr. Oladejo has been taking this down. I do think that Mr. Lewis was within his rights. I think the state should take this to a grand jury. I think that the magistrate may have misread the federal statute on this. And that's why we have appeals courts. That's why we have grand juries.
And the defense asks, is the court going to rule on the probable cause today?
I'm going to reset for a presentation to grand jury so that he doesn't have to face down being re-bonded and all of that junk. Because if I find no PC, he's discharged, and then the case gets refiled, and he's posting bond again, and it's a big inconvenience.
We'll just be right back here.
Right. We'll be right back here doing this all over again. So,
Okay.
okay, y'all. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor.